Alright, hi guys, Assalamualaikum. This is the third video for chapter 7. We are going to cover the remaining of chapter 7. We have discussed previously in terms of the elements involving the implementation process, implementation phase of the strategic management, in which we have already discussed in terms of the importance of annual objectives, in terms of the policies, in terms of the resources, and then the remaining of the, and then we discuss in terms of different structure. That is another important element that would support the implementation phase of any strategic management decision, because the structure definitely would support in terms of the things that you want to achieve. So the next part of this particular chapter, we are going to discuss in terms of another two additional strategy or two additional actions that organization would take when they want to revise their strategy. For example, we have restructuring as well as re-engineering. So the first one, restructuring, involves reducing the size of the firm in terms of the number of employees, number of divisions, units, and number of hierarchical levels in the firm organizational structure, also called downsizing, right-sizing, delayering, intended to improve both efficiency, effectiveness, and cost reduction. Because of the COVID-19 punya pandemic situation, I believe that there would be a lot of companies who would be opting for the restructuring. Why are they restructuring? Because they cannot incur high cost of operations. They cannot pay off the salaries of the employees. So that's why they choose to reduce the number of employees or even reduce the number of divisions within the organizations. So how does the restructuring differ than re-engineering? Re-engineering involves reconfiguring or redesigning work, jobs, and processes for the purpose of improving cost, quality, service, and speed. So what we are doing at the moment, work from home, if the employees are not being laid off by the organization, that is also part of the re-engineering. We redesign the jobs, we reconfigure in terms of the work process so that we can improve in terms of our quality of the service as well as the speed. It is also called as the process management and process innovation and also process redesign. The next element in the textbook, they talk about linking performance and pay to strategy. One of the important elements that would contribute to the successful implementation of the strategy is how successful is the organization in terms of creating a linkage between the performance as well as pay to the strategy. How well you compensate your employees for the strategies that is going to be implemented. Number one, yes, you need to provide a full transparency to all the stakeholders, and you need to reward long-term performance with long-term pay rather than annual incentive, and then base executive compensation on actual company performance rather than on. And then you need to extend the time horizon for bonuses, replace short-term with long-term incentive, and then increase equity between workers and executive, delete many special perks and benefits for executive. If your organization is able to exemplify to their employees that by rewarding them handsomely or provide a good reward and bonuses to them and replace any short-term reward with a long-term incentive, of course, this would contribute to the successful implementation of the strategies, because most of the time money always pays. Money is always a good motivator for the employees lah. So in terms of thinking on how to make sure that the strategies would be implemented successfully, one important criteria that we as managers need to think of is that how can you link the pay to the performance? And because once employees feel that even when they perform above and beyond expectation and they did not receive a handsome reward, or they are not being rewarded accordingly, trust me, he or his or her performance in the future will be affected. All right, this is the last element that I would like to talk about with regards to this particular chapter, managing resistance to change. Why do we have to talk about this? Because when it comes to strategy implementation, sometimes you need to move people around. Sometimes you need to not only move people within the departments, but sometimes you need to move people between the states, or even sometimes between countries. You need to send them over to overseas in order to be to overlook in terms of our business operations in overseas. So, and sometimes when we talk about limitation of resources, because we are distributing the resources according to the priorities, and this also might incur some resistance to change. So how are we as a manager to deal with this resistance to change? So there are three strategies being discussed in the textbook. Number one, we talk about forced change strategy. So as a top manager, you can give orders, you can give an email, we can send out a formal WhatsApp or a formal email, and we instruct them to make the changes, to follow the orders. Yes, in terms of the commitment, is quite high, but in terms of the level of speed of the commitment could be very, very slow. And then number two, we have educative change strategy, one that presents information to convince people of the need for change. We keep on telling students, yes, because of the pandemic situation, COVID-19, now we need to change from face-to-face to online, and we try to convince them by presenting to them all informations that they need in order to understand why do we need to opt for open and distant learning. And number three, self-interest change strategy, one that attempts to convince individuals that change is to their personal advantage. And maybe perhaps at this level, we can convince them if we are using more of ODL, then everybody would become, the technological adoption among students would increase. And this could be an added advantage when you are seeking for a new job right upon after graduation. This would be an added value to you lah. And so that could become a self-interest change strategy that we can use in order to deal with resistance to change. Between these three, in terms of the speed of the commitment, forced change strategy is the fastest one. But in terms of the commitment level, maybe they are not that committed because they are being forced. But in terms of self-interest change strategy, if they buy in with your ideas, you can see the speed of the commitment too would be much faster than the remaining of approaches that we have already discussed. And as organization, you need to create a supportive culture, because culture is important. If they don't believe in terms of what they are doing, there is no way that we can implement this. If the students are not supporting in terms of our approach towards open and distance learning, there is no way that we can make things happen. So creating a supportive culture is very important in terms of implementation of a new strategy. So you can read this on your own, very straightforward. And that would be the end of the chapter. So please make sure revise and revise and revise. I have already shared a link to your textbook. So you can view your e-textbook now, and then you have my slides, and then please do your own case study as well as your own tutorials as instructed. And please let me know if you have any problem with regards to anything with the internet connection, assignment or whatnot, and so that we will try to overcome and address each of the issues accordingly. Remember, please be safe and stay safe, and wash your hands frequently.